Each year, the millions of gallons of illegal whiskey manufactured in the southeastern United States represents millions of dollars in taxes lost to the American people. The AMTTU, in their continuing service to their country, have within 1 year captured over 10,000 stills and impounded over 3,000 of the powerful vehicles which are used by the transporters, those wild and reckless men who transport illegal whiskey from its source to its point of distribution. This is the story of a transporter and his opposite number, an agent of the U.S. Treasury.
Welcome to Barrel House Distilling Company. I'm Pete Wright. I'm one of the co-owners of our small craft distillery here in downtown Lexington. We formed in 2008. My fellow owner Jeff Wiseman and I are longtime friends all the way back from elementary school. And about 7 years ago, had the crazy idea of starting a craft distillery in the heart of Lexington. Many people aren't aware, but Lexington is, or actually had, a very rich distilling heritage prior to Prohibition. There were 28 registered stills in the state prior to Prohibition, but of course with Prohibition those were all wiped out. There were two major distilleries in the city, the James Pepper Distillery, which is the location we are on right now, and also the Old Tar Distillery, which is also on Manchester Street, just about a half mile down the road, where Buster's is now located. The James Pepper Distillery was actually, prior to Prohibition, the largest bourbon distillery in the United States, which actually made it the largest bourbon distillery in the world. By today's standards, might not be as large as we normally think of distilleries, but at the time it was a major production equivalent to a Jim Beam or a Maker's Mark of its time. James Pepper bourbon was drank throughout the United States and actually even throughout the world James Pepper himself was a social magnate and was actually considered to be the person who was responsible for coming up with the old-fashioned drink. So quite an interesting character himself, right here in downtown Lexington. So let's come on in and take a look at the distillery. As you can see, this is a very small operation. You can probably argue that we're one of the smallest, at least legally operating distilleries in the state. We basically do everything that the big distilleries do, all essentially in this room right here. I'll walk you over to our still and really over to the production center right here. This is where essentially it's all done. This center piece here is our cooker, where we actually cook our grains to break the starches in the grains down into more simple sugars, so that the yeast can then ferment that into alcohol. We take once the grains have been cooked, we then transfer the liquid into the mash tubs, where we add yeast and will allow the yeast to ferment the wort at this point for approximately 7 to 10 days. Once the fermentation is complete, you will then have a alcohol content. You'll essentially have a beer of somewhere between 10 to 15% alcohol content, depending on the conditions. What we simply do then is transfer this to our still. This is a 130-gallon pot still that we actually had made to order for us from Portugal back in 2007, delivered to us in 2008. And this still can produce in about 4 hours 15 gallons of alcohol from that 100 gallons of mash or wort. Then, depending on what the product is, will depend on what's done at the next step. If we are making our vodka, we actually have to redistill the product, because vodka has to be distilled to 190 proof for it to be called vodka. Vodka's definition isn't by the grain, it is by the alcohol content. To achieve the 190 proof required of a vodka, we have to distill it 4 times. So we go through 4 times distillation with this still here. It then goes over to our processing line over here, where we cut the vodka back down to 80 proof. And the cutting process is really important for us. We use spring water that we get from Rockcastle County. We actually drive a 250-gallon container down to King Springs, the King Bottling Company. We have a relationship with them. We receive our water from them weekly and as needed to use their essentially limestone filtered mountain water for our cutting process. We think that makes a huge difference, because if you think about it, especially with our vodka, we're taking a pure alcohol and cutting it down to 80 proof or 40% alcohol. So 60% of it is water, and a pure, clean mountain spring water was really, I think, a good marriage or combination for our vodka, and is what I think makes our vodka very unique. If it is our rum, we then actually place it into oak barrels. In fact, actually these are used bourbon barrels that we obtain from several sources in the bourbon industry. These are freshly used. So our rum actually has a unique character in that it has a subtle bourbon flavor to it. We age our rum roughly 4 years before it is released. If it is our moonshine, it goes straight to the processing line as well, where we then cut it down to 100 proof. And then finally, we are also working on a bourbon that we are currently aging, but it's going to be about another year before we're going to have that available to the market. But I think it'll be worth that wait. I'd like to take you next door to show you a few things in addition in regards to the Pepper Distillery, and then let you taste our products. We're real proud of the heritage that we like to think that we're continuing here down at the James Pepper Distillery and with Barrel House Distilling Company. And so this is one of our favorite items that we have down here. This is actually a bottle of James Pepper whiskey that the alcohol in it was distilled 101 years ago. It was distilled in 1912. It was aged 13 years. So it was bottled in 1925, which is while Prohibition was going on. Well, they couldn't sell it the traditional way during Prohibition. So on the back of the bottle, it actually reads for medicinal purposes only. You actually had to have a doctor's prescription to get a bottle of this here in the United States. So a pretty neat little artifact that we have here. I'd like to go ahead and let you have a taste of our products. The first one I'd like to demonstrate is our Pure Blue vodka. We're real proud of this. It's 100% corn. We get our corn from Weisenberger Mill down on Elkhorn Creek. It's 100% corn, and as I said earlier, it's cut with pure spring water from Rockcastle County, King Springs. That combination gives a subtly sweet vodka with a nice clean finish that comes from that spring water, and it's a really refreshing, clean vodka that you can drink quite easily on the rocks. Our next product is Devil John Moonshine. Now, Devil John was actually a real Kentucky character from the 1800s. He was a marshal, lived around Letcher County and crossed over into Western Virginia as well, spent some time over there as well. He was well known because he had 32 children, and he was also well known because it was said if you had Devil John, if you had John right after you, it was like having the devil after you. So hence his name, Devil John. He also did a little bit of moonshining from time to time, and so we thought this was a fitting product to be named after him. Our moonshine is an old Eastern Kentucky moonshine recipe, and again, we once it's out of the still, cut it down to currently 100 proof with our mountain spring water. Devil John Moonshine. And then finally, our only aged product on the market is Oak Rum. Oak Rum is aged in bourbon barrels that we obtain from several sources here in central Kentucky. We're lucky, since we're right here in the heart of bourbon country, to be able to get used bourbon barrels fairly easily. And this gives it a unique flavor. It's certainly a rum recipe, but then it has definitely some bourbon tones to it. We've been lauded nationally on this and actually won a best-in-class award at the American Distilling Institute last year with this rum. We did not want to lose any of the flavor from the aging process in this, so we do not cut oak rum. It is served at barrel proof, which will vary by barrel, but ranges between 103 to 106 proof, depending on the batch. So that's oak rum. Finally, we do again have a bourbon that we expect to be out in the fall of 2014, but we're allowing her to age until she's ready to be served. We hope everyone can come down and visit us here at Barrel House Distilling Company. Again, we're located in the old James Pepper Distillery. We're actually in the barreling house, hence the name of our company, of the old Pepper Distillery on Manchester Street, 1200 Manchester Street, right here in Lexington, Kentucky. We have a tasting room for a sampling of our products. You must be 21 or over to sample our products, of course. And we also have a gift shop where you can purchase items for friends or families, to include our products of Devil John, Oak Rum, or Pure Blue. Our tours in our gift shop is open from noon to 5 p.m. Wednesday through Friday, and 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. Saturdays and Sundays. Really hope you all come down and visit us sometime. Really appreciate y'all joining us on this tour. Hope you enjoyed it and learned a little bit about the craft distilling process. Please come down and visit us sometime. We'd love to see you. Thanks a lot.